2011 was a landmark year for video games, offering genre-defining titles like Skyrim, Portal 2, and Dark Souls, whose gameplay and mechanics are still being replicated over a decade later. While hits like Arkham City and Modern Warfare 3 dominated the spotlight, the year also featured intriguing hidden gems like Bulletstorm with its creative combat, Catherine blending puzzles with mature storytelling, and Homefront, a dystopian shooter with pretty ambitious ideas. Developed by Kaos Studios and published by THQ, Homefront could best be described as a Modern Warfare clone that was heavily influenced by the 1984 film Red Dawn. In fact, the game's script is even credited as being written by Red Dawn director John Milius, but there are some sources that dispute that, and from my research it seems more likely that the marketing team felt the game would sell better if they attached Milius' name to the project. According to former employees, the game was primarily written by CJ Kirshner. I'm sure John Milius contributed a fair amount to the title, but to credit him as the only writer seems a bit insulting. And that really just scratches the surface when it comes to the development issues with Homefront, but let's take a step back and start from the beginning. Before Kaos Studios, there was Trauma Studios. Started by a group of 4 friends, the team developed Desert Combat, a highly successful mod for Battlefield 1942. The mod was so acclaimed that DICE acquired the studio and tasked them with helping develop Battlefield 2. Unfortunately, Trauma Studios would be shut down a year later, and the team would be approached by THQ to form an internal development studio. THQ believed that it needed to expand into the military shooter genre, and so Kaos Studios was formed. They quickly got to work on their first title, Frontlines Fuel of War, which would release in 2008. The title was praised for its large-scale battles, but often criticized for a lack of originality. Comparisons were made to Battlefield, and given the studio's history, I guess that makes sense. When it came time to develop their next title, Kaos Studios went all in. They hired an experienced team and ramped up production on what would become Homefront. However, it's been reported that the actual development of the title only took 1 year of the 3-year timeline, with the 2 years prior marked by creative differences and scrapped projects. Morale at Kaos was low, compounded by poor leadership and what the team felt were intentional slights from THQ, like a leaking urinal that went unrepaired for 7 months, while THQ proudly boasted about their new state-of-the-art studio in Montreal. From the articles I've read about the 3 years of Homefront's development, it's clear that there were significant issues with communication and a lack of confidence in the game's direction. Many within the studio pointed fingers at Danny Bilson, the then-new EVP of core games at THQ. A Hollywood writer with a strong vision, Bilson was highly vocal about his ideas for Homefront, often regardless of whether others in the team agreed with them. This top-down approach created friction, contributing to the project's turmoil. An area where Homefront thrived was in its marketing. THQ needed Homefront to be a success, so they were marketing the fuck out of this game. Whether it was ominous YouTube banners advertising the impending North Korean invasion, or dressing actors up like the North Korean military and releasing thousands of balloons over San Francisco. THQ did everything in their power to make sure people knew about Homefront. One piece of marketing that is often overlooked is the companion album that released to promote the game. Instead of releasing an OST, the marketing team coordinated with Sumerian Records to get a bunch of metal bands to record covers of popular protest songs. With covers from bands like I Wrestled a Bear Once and The Ghost Inside, I ate this shit up when I was younger. This may have actually been the main reason I even still remember Homefront. I love this album so much that I actually plan on making an entire video about it. Let me know in the comments if that's a good idea or if nobody's gonna watch it. I mean, I'm gonna make it anyway, but I'm just curious. When Homefront launched in March of 2011, it faced an uphill battle to carve out its place in the market dominated by juggernauts. Call of Duty Black Ops had been released just a few months prior, immersing players in the Vietnam War and reigniting excitement with its Zombies mode, while the highly anticipated Modern Warfare 3 loomed on the horizon. promising to push the series' cinematic spectacle to new heights. Despite its fairly unique premise of a dystopian America under occupation, Homefront struggled to differentiate itself in a field full of blockbuster shooters. Its interesting premise and setting weren't enough to give it an edge, leaving it overshadowed by the genre's heavyweights. All of that aside, I do think Homefront is an enjoyable game, so let's get into the story and gameplay.
The torpedo that sunk the Cheonan and took the lives of 46 South Korean sailors was fired by a North Korean submarine.
North Korea's weapons program continues to intensify. Global leaders express concern over North Korea's latest atomic test. Strongly defended its nuclear atomic test as a rightful response. We got confidence! Attack confidence! This is not a retreat, nor are we abandoning our Asian allies. Under threat of annihilation by the Greater Korean Republic, Japan and the Renegade.
Into the president ordered to freeze advance withdrawals. We don't know if we will get out next year or not.
Homefront follows a group of resistance fighters waging war against occupying Korean forces. There is a long, in-depth explanation that doesn't really matter. All you really need to know is that the US was weakened, North and South Korea get along now, and they invaded the United States, seizing control of most of the country. There is a lot of effort put into trying to make this invasion seem plausible, but in order to enjoy this game, you're just gonna have to suspend your disbelief. Once you stop asking questions and start shooting, the experience is a lot more enjoyable. You play as Robert Jacobs, a former US Marine and trained pilot. He's arrested by the KPA for refusing to enlist in their military. After being violently removed from his apartment and tossed down the stairs like a bag of garbage, he's loaded onto a prison bus bound for a re-education camp. On the way, Jacobs witnesses horrifying atrocities, including the execution of resistors and a child's parents right in front of them. The bus is ambushed by American resistance fighters Connor and Rihanna, who rescue Jacobs and flee to a suburban cul-de-sac. The combat feels a bit stiff at first. It took me a while to get used to it. After the first 10 minutes or so, I learned to deal with the jank and made sure I was the last one through a doorway. Otherwise, I'd be stuck here forever. This was also my introduction to the friendly AI. And they're not very helpful. There are a variety of weapons at your disposal, Homefront offering an impressive arsenal to choose from, and the limited ammunition forces you to think on your feet, scavenging for new weapons as you go. Guns dropped by enemies come with randomized attachments, some being much better than others, turning the aftermath of every firefight into a gun shopping spree, like I just won a round in Counter-Strike.
My lord.
Right on.
At the cul-de-sac, they meet Boone Carlson, the Resistance leader, who scolds Connor for putting the innocent residents at risk. Boone explains the Resistance's need for Jacob's help to secure fuel for an assault on San Francisco. Before the Resistance can escape, the KPA attacks, forcing the Resistance to fight back and protect the neighborhood. One thing this game excels at is making the enemy undeniably hateable. There's a tense sequence where the group engages an enemy while a terrified mother holding her child takes cover beside them.
Is that a baby?
The Resistance then calls in the absolute coolest character in the entire game, a semi-autonomous combat drone named Goliath. The thing I love about Goliath is how it feels like another character. Despite being a drone with no voice lines, the personality just seeps through in its actions. Jacobs could use a targeting system to highlight enemy troops and armor, allowing for massive destruction. Jacobs wakes up at the Resistance's hidden base, the Oasis, where Boone explains their mission to retrieve tracking beacons for tagging KPA fuel tankers. As an experienced helicopter pilot, Jacobs is vital for the mission. After the tour of Oasis, Jacobs, Boone, and Connor leave through a tunnel to reunite with Hopper. The team encounters a sentry tower, primarily used for security at labor camps and KPA-controlled checkpoints. It's armed with a heavy, tri-barrel 20mm autocannon and will decimate anything it catches in its searchlight. The tower's primary weakness is a propane tank mounted to the rear of the tower, and a well-placed grenade is all you need to take it out. While pushing the tower, Boone gets hit by the cannon and doesn't tell anyone until they've regrouped with Rihanna at Montrose Elementary School. The group receives mortar rounds, which causes a bit of tension when Rihanna objects to their use of white phosphorus. Jacobs, Connor, and Hopper proceed to a labor camp to meet Arnie, who knows the beacon's location. Inside the camp, the team sneaks in, witnesses the dire conditions, and finds Arnie, who initially appears to help them. While entering the labor camp, we can see that the high school's team name is Wolverines, an obvious nod to Red Dawn. After locating Arnie, he leads the team into an ambush, betraying them to the KPA for a deal. The team overcomes the guards, kills Arnie, retrieves the beacon, and escapes. During the escape, the group comes to a baseball field that has been turned into a mass grave.
Motherfuckers! You motherfuckers! You think you can just throw us in a goddamn ditch?
The team fights through the enemy troops and sentry towers, only to hide in the grave to avoid capture when KPA helicopters arrive. Suspecting their presence, orders are given for the grave to be fired upon, but the Resistance fighters survive. The Resistance launches an assault on a KPA-occupied warehouse to place the tracking beacons on the fuel tankers. With assistance from the Gunnison cell, they ram a van into the parking lot while blasting Elvis Presley's Burning Love.
They're closing. Hopper, light the candle.
Copy that. Launching white phosphorus.
The attack devastates the KPA forces, and you even get an achievement for not shooting any of them. That's a little brutal, I think. Hopper accidentally misfires, and a round goes straight for the roof where Jacobs and Rihanna are positioned, forcing them to leap to safety. The white phosphorus unfortunately hits a group of Resistance fighters, horrifying Rihanna.
We gotta head to the tower! Follow me!
Amid chaos, they regroup with Connor at a guard tower, which is destroyed by a KPA helicopter.
Get down! Hold on to something!
Goliath saves them by ramming a KPA soldier and aids in eliminating the helicopter and other reinforcements. This is another moment that I love. Goliath just plowing through the enemies. The team fights through the warehouse to locate the trucks. Jacobs attaches tracking beacons to the fuel tankers just as they are leaving. As the building catches fire, the team escapes to the roof, vaults down to the parking lot, and commandeers a transport truck. Connor completely catches me off guard by saying this.
I thought I smelled Korean barbecue.
Jesus, Connor.
Which is hilarious, but also really just awful. Pursued by KPA vehicles and a helicopter, Jacobs uses Goliath to destroy their pursuers, ensuring the Resistance's escape. Returning to the Oasis after the mission, the group finds their hideout destroyed and its residents massacred by the KPA, including Boone, who was executed and left hanging. They mourn their leader and leave Montrose to pursue the fuel trucks. Connor alerts other surviving Resistance fighters and learns that the Gunnison cell has also been attacked by KPA's 718 Division. The team faces a KPA ambush at a cul-de-sac, relying on Goliath to fight through. Despite sustaining heavy damage, Goliath is repaired by Hopper and continues assisting them. As they proceed, they witness the KPA bombing Gunnison in retaliation. They eventually regroup with the Gunnison cell and learn the dire situation. The wall is heavily fortified, resistance casualties are mounting, and reinforcements are non-existent due to widespread KPA massacres. Connor devises a plan to use C4 attached to Goliath to breach the wall. Despite Hopper's reluctance, the team clears a path for Goliath, eliminating barricades and RPG soldiers. Once Goliath reaches the gate, Jacobs destroys it with an RPG, breaching the wall. The team escapes Montrose in a Humvee and travels to Utah, seeking a survivalist settlement with a helicopter to continue their mission to intercept the fuel tankers.
Get that helicopter. It's the only way we'll catch those tankers.
The team arrives at a survivalist settlement seeking a helicopter for their mission. Connor warns Hopper to stay back due to the survivalists' hostility towards anyone perceived as Korean friendly. They meet the leader, the captain, and inform him of Boone's death. The captain reneges on their agreement, proposing a new deal, handing over Rihanna and Hopper in exchange for Connor and Jacob's lives. The Resistance obviously refuses, leading to a standoff where Rihanna breaks free and she and Connor eliminate the captain and his men. The team fights their way into the settlement, encountering survivalists committing atrocities against KPA prisoners, including forced labor, lynchings, and executions. This is also the most unbelievable stealth mission in any game I've ever played. You're going to tell me that these survivalists, being described as doomsday preppers, are not going to see 4 heavily armed soldiers sneaking around their mostly open outpost during the middle of the day. I've suspended a lot of disbelief for this campaign, but this is where I draw the line. This is arguably the worst mission in the game, but it has some fun sniping segments, so I'll cut it a break. The group witnesses a survivalist RPG take down a KPA Blackhawk, and decide to attack both the survivalists and surviving KPA soldiers near the crash site. Jacobs provides overwatch from the church towers as the others ram a truck into the compound.
Not again!
The survivalists retaliate, firing a rocket that destroys the tower, forcing Jacobs to leap to safety. He regroups with the team and they escape the settlement aboard the helicopter, successfully securing it for their mission.
Good work, everyone.
Hopper, you got a signal?
The convoy is just outside Carson City, heading west. Now let's go hijack those tankers.
The group is in hot pursuit of the fuel tankers in their helicopter. This mission is probably the most fun I've had with a helicopter in any video game. I was genuinely surprised at how easy it was to control with mouse and keyboard. I've played a lot of GTA 5 in my day, and those helicopters are not easy to fly. Jacobs demonstrates why he was critical for the mission by easily taking out KPA armor and reinforcements, pulling up alongside the tankers so the team members can hijack the trucks, and defending them all the way to their escape tunnel. I would have enjoyed the helicopter mission in Medal of Honor a lot more if it played like this. Jacobs and the Resistance joined U.S. military forces preparing a counteroffensive to retake San Francisco. Jacobs and Connor fly in an AH-700 Scout to assault the Golden Gate Bridge, with Jacobs eliminating RPG-wielding KPA soldiers with an underbarrel grenade launcher. Every single enemy that you blast off of the bridge Wilhelm screams on their way down. It was actually really annoying after the first one. After landing at Lime Point Lighthouse, they fight through KPA forces, destroy a T-99 tank, and ascend the bridge tower. Regrouping with Hopper and Rihanna on the bridge, they help clear RPG threats to advance the US armored convoy. Sentry towers and a KPA Z-10 Chimera halt progress, and Jacobs is blasted off the bridge, but manages to climb back up. He destroys the sentry towers, allowing the convoy through, and takes down a helicopter with a javelin. Jacob aids Hopper in reprogramming the AA platform to secure US air superiority and uses a UCAV to destroy a KPA armor column.
Good kill, good kill.
Advancing across the bridge in a Humvee, the team encounters a KPA Goliath. Jacobs destroys it by shooting an oil tanker, but the explosion knocks the team out of their vehicle. I felt like this was the best final boss that this game could have had. We spend so much time with our Goliath, and now we're against one. It was pretty terrifying. Everything I mentioned about the personality of Goliath applies here as well. It felt like I was fighting a vicious, wild animal.
You see all this shit in my way? It's going left! Shut up and let me drive!
When a KPA armor column arrives, Connor sacrifices himself by calling in an airstrike on his position, ensuring the US forces secure the city and the Resistance's mission succeeds.
Eagle 1 has eyes on the flare. Package away.
Connor! Can anyone see him? Connor!
I wasn't able to replay the multiplayer myself, so I'm leaning on the experiences of others to break down how it plays. Homefront offered a variety of multiplayer modes that added a lot of replayability to the game during its peak, especially considering that the campaign only lasts 3 hours. The standout mode is Ground Control, a 16v16 game that feels similar to Frontline's Field of War, or Battlefield. Each map has 3 objectives that teams need to capture and hold to earn points. Once a team reaches the score limit, the map extends, unlocking a new set of objectives. The first team to hit the score limit twice takes the win. It's a cool twist on the standard point capture formula, giving the losing team a chance to turn things around if they struggle early on. During matches, you earn a currency called battle points, which works a lot like the money system in Counter-Strike. The better you perform, like getting kills, capturing objectives, or assisting teammates, the more battle points you rack up. These points can then be spent during the match through a buy menu to buy better weapons, equipment, and even vehicles. What's great about this system is how it rewards skill and teamwork in real time, letting you make impactful decisions based on the flow of the match. Whether you save up for a game-changing vehicle like a tank or drone, or spend points on upgraded weapons to dominate on foot, it adds a layer of strategy. It's not just about playing well, it's about knowing when and where to spend your points to give your team the edge. It's a satisfying mechanic that helps keep the game engaging throughout the match. There is a cool twist to these game modes with the addition of the Battle Commander system. It's an AI, not an actual player, that tracks enemies who are dealing the most damage to your team. The more havoc an enemy causes, the higher their priority becomes, and the bigger the reward you'll get for taking them down. It adds an extra layer of intensity, turning top performing players into high value targets that everyone wants to hunt down. Homefront had a rough journey to release. From miscommunication to creative differences, the game's direction always seemed to be up in the air. These struggles left their mark, most noticeably in the campaign, which ends up feeling a bit too short for its ambitious premise. Yet, despite these shortcomings, the game still manages to deliver an enjoyable experience. Its cinematic action sequences and solid gameplay mechanics shine through, offering moments of excitement and immersion that make it worth revisiting, even if it falls short of its full potential. At the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that not every game can be Modern Warfare 2. If Kaos Studios tried a bit less to emulate Call of Duty and let Homefront breathe enough to become its own thing, I have a feeling that we would be looking back much more fondly at this title. There was a sequel for Homefront created by an entirely new team at Dambuster Studios. This entry focuses on an open world design and plays more like Far Cry than a Call of Duty game. I may get to that eventually, but for now that's all for Homefront. If you like this video, I highly recommend you check out ICECOLDSNAKE's video on Homefront. He does a bit of a deeper dive into the development hell surrounding the game, and it's definitely worth the watch. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.